Hello, hello. This is my peer review of the expert panel by Renuka, Ethan, and Megan. For this, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. I went through the rubric that was shared by the professor so that when I am looking at the testimony that y'all made, I have an idea of what is the expectation of how you will be graded so I can give a more um, specific um, commentary. So, okay, starting with the clarity and critical thinking section, are we defining the issue clearly? Absolutely. We are looking at the problems for the usability and acceptability of MBTA. Are we using multiple disciplinary methods to analyze the issue? I said yes. I saw some engineering, civil engineering in there with the operations research model, I presume, some computer science and user interface over there when we're talking about making and using a centralized app. I saw perhaps some marketing and publicity in there to talk about the uses of signage that are present in all platforms anyways to help promote the changes that are being brought on by the NDC. So good there. Are we acknowledging the limits of the approach and assumptions that writers are making? I said that that could use some improvement, and that was because, just for instance, for the one-stop application, are we considering the writers that do not have access to the internet or do not have access to smartphones? How are we also empowering these writers? Or at one point, I saw that there was a conversation about the Green Line trains and how they only have one, two, or three cars. And I think that's a good point. But when we're talking about fixing this to make the Green Line or the MBTA system in general more accessible, perhaps if we want to tack on more cars, how would that affect the entire cost of the project? Because here, I don't think it was addressed in this paragraph at least. Then we have the reasoning and support section. Are we using specific examples and evidence? I said that that could use some more improvement as well. While the anecdotal evidence that you added was very relatable, definitely resonated with me as well. I do think that the use of more specific examples, perhaps going through and parsing through the schedule itself to see where specific examples where we're seeing that at peak times trains are scheduled like more than 10 minutes apart, so we can point to those, or like specific redundancies in the bus routes. I think that would be very helpful. That would make the case more stronger. Then we have, are we adding something new to what other writers or scholars have said? So I said that could use some improvement as well. Perhaps it would be helpful to make use of some of the writing from experts in this area in terms of what they have said about the public transport system in cities that are commendable, like Japan, and comparing and contrasting that writing to our current system and how we can perhaps make Boston more like that city. So I think that could be helpful. Then we have, are we acknowledging and addressing counterclaims or exceptions where necessary? So for this, I just said that we could make that better by perhaps addressing, there was this line like, there does not seem to be any sort of optimal scheduling of these trains. I think that was a pretty big claim. And I wonder if we could address that, like what would a current civil engineer who did design these scheduling, like what would they say, right? If we could address that, I think that would be helpful. We could perhaps acknowledge how the weather in Boston impacts the scheduling and the public transport, and how, just to acknowledge, like, this is where we cannot meet, like, we cannot change this, we cannot impact the weather. So that's going to be an exception to our solution as well. Just something to keep in mind. Then moving on to the genre and rhetorical awareness section. Are we addressing a clear audience? We are. Are we integrating the disciplinary approaches and demonstrate how they connect and work together? I said yeah. This did not feel like three separate people wrote this paper. Like it wasn't like three separate paragraphs that are connected. I couldn't, distinguish between the three writers. So even the tone and voice was very similar. They were very well connected. The flow was great. So yeah, good stuff. And then for modes of communication, do they suit the subject, audience, and format? So I said yes, but I took off one point just to address something that Renuka wrote, which was that she expressed that there were some concerns and she wanted us to give y'all feedback on whether or not this piece of writing is persuasive. So I was like, I agree that perhaps this could be made more persuasive because this is an oral presentation. Well, I would have to see the final product to really judge it properly, but perhaps we could talk about why there is this need in today's world to ameliorate the public transport system. I think that could be helpful to make this case stronger, especially when we're reading it out loud. So yeah, creativity and risk taking. Takes an approach that is effective for the problem and the solution. I said five. I said that there was no improvement needed. It's great because I think the solutions that y'all suggested were reasonable and very doable, and I would like to see them happen. Then are we offering something unexpected or showing creativity in approach? So I did say that this needs some improvement, but I just want to preface this by saying that my interpretation of this prompt is that the student is expected to show some sort of ingenuity or novelty in the solutions they are suggesting. I give an example, perhaps this brainstorming, like what could this ingenuity look like in the context of your project? And I was like, okay, perhaps if you were suggesting creation of a new line outside of the orange and the green and the blue that we have, or perhaps you're talking about connecting more parts of the city to make, that those were the kinds of examples that came to my head. I will say that I don't think ingenuity is something that is an expectation. If that's there, that's awesome. But if it's not, that doesn't necessarily detract from your presentation. So I would go ahead and ignore what I said because I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this part of the rubric correctly. Anyway, so yeah, are we engaging in complex reasoning and writing? I said absolutely. I think it's well written. It flows well. As I said before, it is logical. So there was no point where I was going like, wait, how did they go from A to B? Like it flowed logical. Then we have organization and cohesion. Are we introducing the topics and context in a way that prepares the reader for what follows? Here I just took off the point to just say like maybe in the beginning when we're introducing the topic, we could talk about like this is why we need to ameliorate our public transport system right now. Perhaps we could talk about the increasing gas prices or the environment, or perhaps something that Michelle Booth has said. I think that could be interesting and make this very like, this is why this is important and a good header. But outside of that, in the main body paragraphs, I think that, yeah, the reader was not surprised by what was coming. It was, yeah, uses a logical framework, yes, uses transitions, yes, integrates contributions from different disciplines and authors in a way that is smooth, yes. Use of social citations, yeah, that was good. I see that there were only two. So yeah, if you find the need to add more, specific examples that we were talking, I would love to see more citations or writing from other experts in this field. That would more citations might as well. Tone, style, mechanics, good. I thought it was yeah, I had no point. I guess in terms of tone, what I said about persuasiveness, I would have to hear the final product to really be a good judge of that. But I think that overall this was great. And then just some final thoughts. I just wanted to point out that I saw that the MBTA is not easy to use and navigate with confusing procedures. I wasn't sure what you meant by that. If you wanted to explain that, I would love to see that. Or just take it out, and then there was a difficulty of obtaining a Charlie card. This was just mentioned here. but was not addressed later on. That could be something you could take out or explain later on. Um, and then you obviously talked about unreliable schedules. This was the only part that I was like, oh. But other than that, I think this is a great testimony, and I think definitely something that I've thought about myself and a lot of students can relate to. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the final product. You guys did a great job. Okay, thank you. Oh, I stopped sharing. Stop recording. All right, thank